Did you ever see the movie Star Wars: The Last Jedi? I'd wager a bet to say that generally speaking, most of you have. Now, we all have some strong opinions of what Star Wars should and shouldn't be, but let me ask you this. Can you come up with a story for The Last Jedi that is simply uncompromising and tells a simultaneously brand new story and one that is true to Star Wars? I'd bet that a good portion of you are already typing below, but pause for just a moment. Think about it. Think about subjectivity and what something is defined as being. To me, Star Wars is a story of the hero's journey. And also there's some space wizards. Pretty straightforward. Now, of course, The Last Jedi did that dastardly deed of subverting expectations, which automatically puts it on a lot of people's lists. The Last Jedi conundrum is just that, though. My perfect Star Wars is that of the hero's journey in space wizards. But for some, it could just be the story of humans, the story of overcoming overwhelming odds. And that's not even necessarily at odds with my concept. The problem is that those vague ideas that we're describing are just that, vague concepts. People will never be satisfied with something new, and certainly not if it isn't the original people that created said franchise. This is something that directly correlates to Halo. Here we have this franchise with 20 years of world building and established characters and worlds rich to the brim with concepts and ideas. I guarantee you that I have the perfect idea for what Halo Infinite should be. Here's the problem. It isn't perfect for everyone. There are classic Halo fans who love everything that happened in 4/5 unapologetically, or even people who have only played 343's take on the franchise, and I don't think it's fair to act as if there's any less fans of the franchise than the people who hold the original trilogy to the standard that we do, or even people who have only played 343's take on the franchise. There's no such thing as an incorrect opinion. Now that we've gotten subjectivity down, and we can kind of talk about Halo Infinite in a much broader way, let's do just that. So with everything out in the open, we can now take the concept that 343 has introduced to the franchise, and we can essentially deconstruct the mistakes of the past and how 343 is working on them for the future. With the following aspect of the game, I'll be discussing specifically my opinion on the subject. I shouldn't be immune to criticism, so I await it with expectation. One of the largest gripes I had with Halo 4 to 5 was the change in art style. There was something rather generic about the direction that 343 decided to take Halo's art direction into, and I'll just be brutally honest. I found it boring and uninspiring. Specifically with regards to the Spartan armor within 4/5, it somehow fell into this zone of Japanese sci-fi that I felt I'd seen 1,000 times before. The weapons followed this direction that I'd felt Halo Reach had fallen victim to. Having more polygons simply does not mean that you need to use more detail than is compelling. I don't think this is compelling. I think it's complicated. Seeing Chief's armor design for the first time in Infinite, you can imagine that I was very pleased with what I saw. Now that we've seen it in action, I'm even more pleased. Now here's the downside. There appears to be simply an issue with the lighting engine, but somehow it seems that a lot of these models have actually completely lost detail. 343 is specifically remarked about the lighting issues, isolating Digital Foundry's analysis of this lack of fidelity as a strong example. Another thing that's really interesting to take note of is just how story-driven this little slice of the game truly is. Coming off of the story of Halo 5, which Bonnie Ross admitted herself was a shortcoming, we immediately have a much larger sense of weight and consequence within this small portion of the game. We get this sequence with the pilot sort of talking at the Chief, and naturally the Chief not even meeting it with a tilt of the helmet. There's such a strong relationship opportunity here, and just based on what we've seen so far, I imagine that 343 is looking to tell the hero's journey, using the pilot as a vehicle. Of course, we also have our villain's introduction. Now, I don't think there's any argument that this is a pretty cliche speech here, but Halo is built on cliche. There's always room for that sort of thing. The narrative of the story always felt as if it was built with this 80s light machismo DNA to it, and somehow it feels like this is again returning to that feeling. Here's where we're going to step into controversy. This is a very divisive issue. Most of you probably already know what I'm talking about. I'm, of course, talking about sprint. It wouldn't be right to not touch on this, and I do and don't have some really strong feelings on this subject. I hardly noticed Chief sprinting in this demo, and I have to wonder what that means for the grand scheme. It appears that it's been significantly de-incentivized, as Chief hardly gets any sort of boost from the sprint animation. Not only that, but we can actually see that instantly upon exiting sprint, Chief's reticle reappears. If there's no loss of agency over the use of sprint, most of the problems with it disappear completely. But I just don't have it in me to not take issue with its inclusion in some way. This is maybe just my nostalgia and yearning for a complete return to form for Halo multiplayer, but never once has the complete removal of sprint been on the table? This is really frustrating to me, because even with it being nerfed, it's still going to have an effect on the level design, and compromises will be made as a result. I have to allow some room for being proven wrong here. I'd love to find out that I'm way off base and the inclusion of sprint means zero compromises to the level design, but the implications of multiplayer being affected are certainly there. While we're on the topic of multiplayer, let's just dive into what little pieces of information that we do have. We now know that equipment in the vein of Halo 3 is officially back. This is honestly excellent news. 343 has legitimately taken the idea of mobility enhancement and scaled it back sizably. The grapple hook in multiplayer is only a pickup. This means we're going to be looking at essentially a rolled back version of Halo 5, with all mobility enhancements left just being staples of the FPS genre at this point. It's still a bit unfortunate to see that Halo apparently needs to follow trends and is, I guess, just incapable of not doing it despite years of doing exactly what it wanted when it wanted to. I'm hoping that we see some legitimate evolution of the multiplayer in the sense that 2 was to Combat Evolved. I think that's possibly what we can expect. Where CE was this rough idea of a multiplayer game, 2 was this breakthrough experience that was confident in its decisions and made damn sure that it was its own game. Though part of me feels that this is the way 343 is actually working on their multiplayer, throwing out what doesn't work and building something new from the scraps of what came before. That's the way to do it. I believe their driving motivation in this particular entry is to do exactly as Bungie did and simply make a game that you didn't know you wanted. Now let's talk about the actual sandbox and how it appears in this segment we have. The way this firefight plays out, there's a cognitive focus on the different environmental set pieces being used to diversify the way the fight plays out. With the way the AI seems to also interact, there's definitely a legitimate prioritization on leaning on the sandbox, as opposed to the character mobility. This means that the campaign level design isn't simply taking a backseat to serve as a showcase for Spartan abilities. These are positive changes. I'll again mention how sick the grapple hook is, and how I think that has some really cool implications for the multiplayer mode. As a pickup, I see a lot of prioritization around it, and a lot of really interesting utilization of the map with it in mind. I imagine a scenario of a map with a large chasm, where there are spots on each side for people to take potshots in, and if you're talented enough, you can grapple across for a quick flank and dominate the enemy team, depending on what kind of heat you're packing. Let's talk about weapon redesigns and how upsetting they are to people. I get it, guys. I really do. These designs are cherished by the community, and we hold on to them near and dear, but here's the thing. We've been here before. Out the gate, we're seeing these weapons as being a different design and are knee-jerking about them not looking the way they used to, but what if they're functionally completely different? Is there really a need for them to look the same when they don't act remotely the same? I distinctly recall some rather upset people upon playing Halo 3, given the difference between the functionality of 3's pistol and CE's pistol, despite them being literally identical. If a weapon isn't meant to fit in the sandbox in the same way as another, should it really even look the same? Halo 2 featuring dual wielding meant that Bungie had to do some soul searching and find out exactly how different weapons would fit the sandbox differently as a result of the design changes. With something like the grapple hook and all the other unidentified equipment that's been added to Halo Infinite, as well as I'm sure numerous other things, maybe the idea of the pistol as we have it in our heads doesn't quite fit anymore. Could it possibly be that 343 has spent time working out the sandbox in a way that it actually feels snug, but also different to the past? Do we really want a Halo game that feels exactly like the old ones? Now, I want to mention a huge gripe here that I had with Halo 5 that I absolutely want to see gone from Infinite, that I really don't see being mentioned too often. I'll give you 5 seconds to take a guess as to what I'm referring to. Hey, you know that rocket launcher? Yeah, it's going to be up in 30 seconds. Hey, you know that rocket launcher? Yeah, it's going to be up in 15 seconds. Hey, you know that rocket launcher? It's going to be up in 10 seconds. Hey, you guys know the rocket launcher? All right, it's coming up right now. Hey, you guys know the rocket launcher? It's coming up right now. I hope you're ready for the rocket launcher. Oh, wait, what's that? You couldn't hear me? What could that sound be that's blocking you from hearing me? Could it be useless information over the game's communication? Look, I'm sorry, and I believe you have good intentions with this 343, but good lord. Let people find the weapons on the map. I don't even care if you have to have them float around the map so less skilled players know where to look. Please don't announce to me well in advance of them spawning the fact that they're going to spawn. Don't tell me this at all, in fact. If you're hoping that players can more easily locate the power weapons, simply leave the indicators there that count down to when they'll be back and leave it at that. This means those who simply know the timers versus those that don't are on a closer playing field, but without having to have chatter yelled into my ear every 10 seconds. In fact, let's just get rid of half the announcements. I love the medal for getting a perfect kill, and Jeff Steitzer sounds really satisfied when he says it too, but I don't need a celebration medal every couple of seconds. At the very least, allow me to completely disable chatter / medal rewarding, or give an option for classic MP voiceover where I'm just getting the most crucial information, such as the time left in the match, the amount of kills needed to win, objective notifications, etc. Okay, that wasn't strictly Infinite reveal related, but moving on. So we now know with absolute certainty that this game is in fact open world, which means that we're definitely getting a campaign designed in a way none have ever played before. We've even got our patented, if you can see it, you can go to it. Straight from Todd Howard's playbook. I really hope you guys can deliver on this, because leaving me to my imagination is a bad idea. Let me show you guys something real quick. Take a look at this art book. I'll link the pre-order for it in the description. Look how goddamn expansive this area is. If this is what we're getting in Infinite, then we ain't seen nothing yet. There's so much potential for this game that it keeps me up at night, and I'm praying that they can deliver on it. I romanticize this idea that the visuals are a bit subpar because the game is absolutely teeming with content. There's a really big idea that seems to have escaped from Halo's past, and that is specifically this open world design. There were rumors of Halo 5 being open world, and the initial reveal trailer even seemed to point to this. So I wouldn't be surprised to find that this idea has been in the cards for quite a while. You even have Frankie saying that this is the game 343 has wanted to make for ages. Makes you think. The one thing that strikes me as so fascinating about Halo Infinite's reveal is there really wasn't much complaining about sprint. There wasn't much complaining about clamber or sliding. There wasn't any complaining about the pacing or the gunplay or anything like that. I think the vast majority of the audience that watched the reveal thought that what they saw looked, sounded, and seemed to play like Halo. The graphics, of course, were concerning, and I do think a lot of that really does have to do with the visuals of the game appearing washed out and lacking in complex detail in a lot of areas. I'm eager to get my hands on this game so that I can finally put to task all of my expectations of it. I really hope that we do get our hands on it some way very soon, but from what I understand, the next bit of gameplay is just around the corner. There's definitely a lot to take in from what we got from Halo Infinite so far, but am I ready to say that 343 has learned their lesson? Well, it's not necessarily that black and white, but I'll say that they've definitely taken a ton of the feedback from Halo 5 and have essentially taken what works and what doesn't from that title. Not to mention scrapping the old art style. That's a huge concession from them. In my personal opinion, they've taken the things that we've said from 4 to 5 very personally. It appears that they may have reformed the series into something that might for once actually have a clear direction. They just gotta stick to it this time. Hey guys, thanks again for watching the video. I really appreciate you all. The community has been really active lately on the Discord, and I'm loving all of it. But I want to just state, we play custom games all the time on the Discord. Jump into the Discord. It is so lit. I swear that it is awesome. We have a game night every Wednesday. We have a movie night every Saturday. We have an in-Discord currency you can earn through participation with a shop in a casino. We have a community Halo basketball league that we're building teams for. Seriously, there's so much on there that you guys would probably love and have a blast with. So I do hope you guys take that link in the description or in the link that I'm likely spamming in chat right now if you're watching this live as it's premiering. Guys, I want to take this moment to thank my Patreon supporters here one by one because we have so many of them now. We've got 10 of them right now. So first and foremost, I want to go ahead and thank Sovereign. He's our newest supporter. He's at the $1 tier. Thank you so much, Sovereign. I want to thank Sticks for being at the $5 tier. Thanks David Tees for being at the $10 tier. Ryan McCann for being at the $10 tier. Thank you Ghost Warrior for being at the $5 tier. Screamy at the $10 tier. Reclaimer at the $5 tier. Rye at the actually undesignated $12 tier. Thank you so much, Rye. Anthony Berry at the $5 tier. And again, the original Colton Pack at $5. Thank you guys so much. This is all a dream come true, and I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to do this by supporting me on Patreon here. It really is a huge help. And to anyone else that is watching right now, for me to be able to continue doing this, I would like to be able to do this for a living. It would give me a lot more time to polish off everything I do, and I'm always trying to put in as much effort into these as I possibly can. So if you could, I would much appreciate if you could support me on Patreon. Thank you guys. Hey guys, Community Night is once again coming this Wednesday, and on Community Night we're going to be doing some basketball. I think we're going to mess around with that a little bit and see how it goes around. We had a blast last Wednesday. It was so freaking fun. We did so much cool stuff, and I shoutcasted the whole thing the whole time. It was really great, and people loved it. So I think we're gonna do that again, but we're also gonna just play some classic customs. We're gonna stick with the 2 hours on console, 2 hours on PC thing. And if you're curious how to join the custom games, really all you have to do is join the Discord or jump into the chat at the time that we're streaming, and we'll get you in. It's really not too difficult to get in and be a part of it. But anyway, guys, that really wraps up the whole video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This was a little bit more of a retrospective. I know I kind of covered the game already, but I wanted to kind of go back into it a little bit just to kind of recover some of the things that I talked about, kind of touch bases with where 343 has been in the past and where they are now. You guys have a good one. Thanks so much for watching.